In this video, we're doing another key comic book spotlight, this time on the man without fear, Daredevil. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swagglehos. And in this video, I'm doing another key comic book spotlight, this time on Daredevil. That's right, the man without fear. Now, if you are new to my channel or this series, what I do with key comic book spotlight is just point out 5 key and or grail books that the comic book collecting community often pursues when they're a fan of this superhero or supervillain. And in this particular case, we're going to do Daredevil. Now, this is not here to necessarily identify any kind of spec or books that nobody's heard of. More, it's just information for new comic book collectors or old comic book collectors that might want to find out a little bit about their favorite character. But before I get into my picks for Daredevil, if you guys could drop me a like or a comment or subscribe if you're enjoying my content, love interacting with you guys. Let's keep this conversation going. All right, with that being said, let's get into my picks here. And again, like all of these superheroes and supervillains, it's always so hard to narrow it down to just 5 books. I mean, these characters have so many great books to collect. That's why we have, boxes and boxes of comic books, because we're just obsessed with, we want to own all of them. But I did manage to narrow it down to 5 books that I think are pretty cool. And, this first one here, I feel like no one's going to argue with me on this one, but that's going to be Daredevil's first appearance, which is, of course, Daredevil #1. And, you got to love this book right here. This is one of the ultimate Silver Age classic books for this character. And what's really interesting about this is I feel like in recent years, this is a book that's finally started to get the respect that it deserves, because a lot of books that came out in this era that were the first appearances of characters like, Spider-Man and Iron Man and Doctor Strange and Captain America and the Silver Age and things like that. Those particular books have always been valued at numbers that were like way higher than this Daredevil character. And Daredevil has always been a character who, hasn't quite gotten the same sort of respect as an A-tier character as they deserve. And I think one of the reasons for that is, I really started to think about it, is I think that Daredevil, unfortunately, hasn't had as much pop cultural success as some of his, counterpart characters. Like, Daredevil didn't have an amazing, 90s cartoon that was dedicated specifically to him, or Daredevil's movie, with Ben Affleck was, say what you will about it, but it didn't have, it didn't come out at a time when people were obsessed with superhero movies. And thankfully, because of Charlie Cox, we got a recent Daredevil Netflix show that did get a lot of respect, and people really loved it. But one of the problems with that show is that, the Netflix shows aren't in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. At least not yet. And so for that reason, Daredevil as a character, I don't think got the same sort of elevation that the other Marvel Cinematic Universe characters have. But finally, people are starting to really pursue this book. You've seen the numbers start to go up with this thing. And that's because people feel like Daredevil is finally probably going to make an impact in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And for that reason, Daredevil #1 has been, a go-to book for a lot of Daredevil fans. And as we dig into the numbers here, of course, I underplayed it, but, this is not going to be a cheap book by any means. If you want this book at a 9.6, it's going to run you $100,000. And as you can see here, there's a January sale in 2020, only 6 on the census. And then all the way here at the bottom, you're looking at that $975, $675 mark. But I kind of feel like this is a book, generally speaking, that, in a CGC, it's going to run you at minimum $1,000. So first appearance of Daredevil #1. All right, let's move on now to my second pick here. My second pick for Daredevil is actually going to be Daredevil #7. And what is the significance of this? Well, this is the first time that we see Daredevil in his classic red costume. As you guys may have noticed in this book right here, Daredevil had kind of this original design for his character where he had kind of this yellow costume mixed with the red. Well, in Daredevil #7, they kind of revamped his costume, and he went with this red aesthetic here. So this is the first appearance of the character, of the rendition of the character that people, love and people feel like is iconic, him wearing the red devil suit. And, just a great cover. You get that bonus where you have Submariner on it with them doing battle underwater. And so this is just a really awesome book to have. And I think for people who, kind of like associate Daredevil with a certain look, this is maybe the Grail book for those kind of people. And as we dig into the numbers here, you see there's a 9.6 on the census that sold for $50,000. It drops off quickly after at the 9.4 for, around that 975.50 mark. And then here at the bottom, CGC numbers, maybe you're looking around $100 or so to get a really, really low grade for this. But this is one that, typically speaking, it's going to be hard for you to find it that low, because this is actually a beloved book and everybody really, really cherishes that Daredevil red costume. So Daredevil number 7 is my second pick. All right, let's go on now to my third pick here. And my third pick is actually Daredevil number 158. And what is the significance of this? Well, this is the first time that Frank Miller, famous comic book creator, Frank Miller, drew the Daredevil character. And Frank Miller would go on to have one of the great runs in all of comic books. I mean, Frank Miller on Daredevil is, something just as a storyline, just as a significant moment within the comic book culture and the comic book space. Frank Miller on Daredevil is like peanut butter and jelly. The combination just goes so well together. And, he started off his run doing the artwork here in Daredevil 158. And this is just a cover that I think, really resonates with people. Honestly, it's one of the great covers, I think, in all of comic books. I absolutely love this cover. For me, I don't have too many Daredevil books, but this is a Daredevil book that I myself would love to own one day. And, I just think it's really, really striking. And knowing that Frank Miller had a great run on Batman and things like that, I feel like this is really, just evokes that sort of, kind of noir aesthetic that it really goes well with the Daredevil character. And for that reason, I think that this is a book that people really love and people often pursue. And as we dig into the numbers here, you'll see a 9.8 selling for that $675 mark back in December of 2020. And then at the bottom here, you're not going to find too many CGC numbers, but generally speaking, this is a book that, is fairly pricey. When I look on eBay, I'm seeing numbers going, that $75, $80, $90 mark, maybe $100, depending on, the condition and the grade, if it's a nice copy. So definitely not necessarily a cheap book, but one that is a great collector item and people often pursue. All right, let's move on now to my fourth pick here. My fourth pick is actually going to be Daredevil number 168. And what's the significance of this? Well, this is the first appearance of Elektra. And so for that reason, it's kind of what I would say for this spotlight. I kind of would call it an Elektra book. But one of the reasons I'm including it in this Daredevil sort of key spotlight here is because this is the first time that Frank Miller actually wrote Daredevil. So that is significant to me in that sense. And also, I think people equate Daredevil with Elektra. They kind of go hand in hand. Their duo as like a kind of the love interest, but also, they've been enemies, but they've also been, on the same side of things. And so for that reason, I feel like this is an important one to include in the Daredevil character. And that's Daredevil number 168, first appearance of Elektra and first written work on Daredevil by Frank Miller. And as we dig into the numbers here, you'll see that this book at a 9.8 sold in December of 2020 for $1,200. And then on the low end, you're not going to find, too many CGC numbers here on the low end, but generally speaking, as I've gone onto eBay and things like that, this is a book that you see going around that, pretty high, $150, $175, maybe $200 mark, because it is obviously a great Daredevil book. First Frank Miller, written by that, first appearance of Elektra, and people, I think really love the Elektra character. I think she's somebody that, we had that movie that came out with Jennifer Garner, I believe it was. I forget the name. And people didn't love that movie. It was a little bit corny, but people really do love the Elektra character. And I think that, when we do get Elektra in some kind of way, in some kind of TV show or movie, this book will definitely take another huge jump in the market. And, but for, even if we don't get it, this is always going to be a book that people want to collect and want to pursue because Elektra is a great character and people love the team up with Daredevil. All right, let's move on now to my last pick here. My last pick is going to be Daredevil number 170. And what is the significance of this? Well, this is the first time that Daredevil actually went against the Kingpin. And for me, I don't know what it is, how it feels for you guys, but for me, I can't think of Daredevil without thinking about the Kingpin. I feel like their, arch rivalry is one of the best superhero, supervillain arch rivals there is in Marvel comic books. I mean, just Daredevil going against the Kingpin is just like one of the classic sort of good guy, bad guy storylines you're always going to see. And for that reason, I kind of look at Daredevil as 170 as being one of the, great key books within the Daredevil run that, I just feel like represents like everything he stands for as a character. And when I look at that cover, just the cover alone, I think is just so amazing. It's so dynamic. And, as a Daredevil collector, I have to assume that, having this book would be something that you would definitely want in your collection. So Daredevil number 170 definitely gets my pick as the number 5 spot. And as we look into the numbers here, we see that, at a CGC 9.8, it's going to run you around the $280 mark. There were sales in November of 2020 for that. And then on the low end here, you're not going to see too many CGC numbers. But generally speaking, this is that book that, when I go onto eBay and I look for it, I'm seeing around, maybe you can get it for $20, maybe you get it for $30 or $40, depending on the grade. But not necessarily like a free book, but at the same time, there are good deals to be had. So Daredevil number 170, first Kingpin in the Daredevil series. Anyways, that is all I got for this video. Those are my 5 picks for, key comic book spotlight for The Man Without Fear, Daredevil. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys have any of these books? Do you guys want to pursue any of these books, or were there other Daredevil books that I left out that you guys think are key or grail books that, if you're a fan of Daredevil, you should collect them. Also, let me know what other characters you'd like to see me do a key comic book spotlight on. Drop me a like, comment, or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I will see you in the next video.